like to bring this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing, if we could have a moment of silence for former police chief Jack Carroll, who passed away. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Jonathan Ramsey,
Here.
Marianne Rosa,
Here.
Ken Demers,
Here.
Robert DeCina,
Here.
Anthony DeBona,
Here.
Gary Lafferty,
Here.
Robert Vitale,
Here.
Denise Russ,
Here.
Rachel Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. Public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the town council? Please come forward, state your name and address. And there'll be a little button that looks like a face that will... Oh, is it on? I don't see the light. There you go.
There we go. Got it. Thank you. Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place in Oakville. Quite a while ago, I mentioned about the shamrocks painted on the sidewalks in Oakville, and I just got a chance to kind of follow up on that last week. So what I'm told is that Roy Kavanaugh decided that was okay, and he did it himself. Funny, though, that I know that there was some painted there after he was no longer employed by the town. I doubt he did it himself then. But the problem I have with that is it looks terrible. And, of course, everyone's going to misconstrue this. I have nothing against the Shamrock Shuffle. I think it's a great thing. But we have painted, the town has gone ahead and painted our sidewalks, and they look terrible now. So I'm asking you to unpaint them. If our tax money can paint them, I think our tax money should unpaint them. Because if we are trying to tell kids you can't deface public property, how does somebody say, oh, well, you know, but there's shamrocks painted here, I want to put rainbows on here, I want to do this or that. I don't think it was appropriate. And certainly the Shamrock Shuffle makes a lot of money, and I think they could put little flags along the route rather than permanently paint our town property. And I will continue to address this and maybe petition for this or something, because if you're on Main Street in Oakville and you're stopped at the light on Hillside, just look over at the sidewalk. You see a green blob. It's not attractive, and there should have been no reason to have done that. And it's not about the Shamrock Shuffle. It's about, you know, we don't do that. We don't paint vegetables outside at the farmer's market. We don't paint Santa Claus's reindeers at anything else. It was just something that was done, and it wasn't appropriate to do it. And I think we should address it and get rid of it before kids start thinking they can paint there, because that's what's going to happen. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to mention is when I looked at the agenda today, and I saw that you're going to consider the acceptance of an offer to purchase Town Hall, I reached out to somebody that I know who wants to purchase Town Hall. And I said, oh, I think they're going to be discussing that tonight. And I was very surprised by the answer I got. He said, no, or I said, I think they're going to be discussing it. Is it for your offer or for you? And the answer I got was no. Last week, the realtor told me that the town manager told him that they're not selling the property anymore. They are keeping it to do a project for the town. It's not really clear to me. Based on what I see on the agenda, when you're having an executive session, is that you are still planning to sell this, and I think you should take into consideration that one of the persons that was interested in purchasing it, his realtor told him that that's what he heard from the town manager. I know the last time that this was in a contract, it was for $65,000 less than somebody else wanted to pay for it. So I have a lot of concern that my town is not, my governing body is not taking the steps to ensure that we get the most money for that building. So I don't know what the plan is, and I don't know what this story is here telling someone that the town is keeping it. I'm really going to be very interested in seeing how this offer, what happens with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Al?
Good evening. As usual, I'm going to start my comments off about public participation. I truly believe it should be at the end of the meeting. Long meetings with detailed agendas like this one deserve a chance for the population to ask questions about what occurred, because some of the stuff occurs is new. And so I'm going to ask again for public participation at the end of the meeting. Now I'm going to do my comments, and in my comments there's going to be a lot of questions. I probably won't get the answers. I'm hoping you people up there will think these questions are valid and find out for yourselves what the answers are. So I've got a few short comments here. It's usual when a citizens ask a question of elected officials to get some sort of response. It lets the citizen know that they were heard, they were understood, that they understood the remarks. This has not happened in our town council meetings. So I tried the town council email about a mistake I found, I think, in the budget presentation, hoping to get a response. And there was nothing from that email. It could be because the council didn't read it, didn't understand it, or disagreed with it. But from what I can tell, all the members of the council are good, well-intended individuals. But I got no response. I wondered why. The mistake I found was that the rent money from the Sunset Grill was put into the revenue account of the golf course. This made sense before the park was split in two. One side being the restaurant, the pool, the tennis courts, and the other side the golf course. The golf course is an enterprise fund that is required to be supported by its customers. The park is supported by tax dollars, as described in the budget. Our audit report shows the course as a business enterprise. The mistake has the effect of making the golf course look more profitable than it is. Being profitable has been a challenge for the golf course for years. Before I continue, let me state that I do not want to get rid of the Crestbrook Golf Course. It's a beautiful course. It's used by a lot of people. I want the accounting for the golf course enterprise fund to be accurate, correct, and the changes transparent. If the town wants to help the golf course survive by giving it money from taxpayers' dollars, do it in the open with a clear accounting. Put the rent money in the general fund and transfer it to the enterprise fund. This shortcut, the shortcut of going straight from the restaurant to the golf course, is not transparent, and it's not the correct way to support the golf course. The restaurant is not a pay-for-play customer, but there's a bigger problem. I read the Golf Pro contract, and I think there's a lot of questions to be asked, and I think you're going to talk about it this evening. Has the pro been chosen? Well, I happened to look at the Park and Rec meeting tonight, and it doesn't seem like it's been chosen. They hadn't found one in their last meeting on March 18th, so I guess they're still looking. Is the previous Golf Pro contract still available? There's been a lot of changes in this contract that I think I'd like to see the last contract and see what was changed. Always an interesting question. Has the pay increased for the Golf Pro? In this Friday's packet, is this the first time everybody in the council had to review this document? Has anybody seen it before tonight? You can answer it later. The language in the contract is dependent on the budget passing. It is putting the cart before the horse. You're going to vote on the contract wording before you even get to doing what the numbers on the budget are. You ought to really reverse it. You can't pass that contract without knowing what the budget numbers are. I'm going to go through each line, and you can take with it what you will. In the contract, there has wording is such other as, in section 101, by the way, as designated in this agreement. I don't think it was ever designated, no one was ever designated in the agreement specifically. In 203, the contract, how will the contractor determine if consulting with the town, and the words they use in the contract is appropriate and necessary. And I'm not sure how anybody determines whether it's appropriate or necessary. In 204, it says that, has the town read and understood the accepted standards for golf professionals established by the PGA? It's one of the requirements. I don't know if anybody's ever read that. And the contractor has read and understood the commission's standards and policy. I don't think he's been named yet, or they've been named yet, so I hope they do. In section 204, A, it says turn over to the town daily fees all collected according to established procedures. Well, I'm not sure if the new guy is going to know what those established procedures are. Okay, now, in 204 sections B, D, G, H, J, O, and P, these are the most troublesome paragraphs. They talk about the course maintenance personnel as town employees. Currently, the enterprise fund, the golfers, pay for the salaries and benefits. In this contract, the citizens' tax dollars will be paying for the salaries and benefits. The salaries of the operation maintenance personnel is about $210,000. I think that's about 3 people. The benefits, including Social Security, Medicare, employee retirement, medical insurance, life insurance, and disability insurance, is probably, benefits usually about 50% of the salaries paid. So that could be another $105,000. Now, it says the pay will pay for starters and rangers to the tune of 1,200 man-hours. That really should be person hours. This is at $15 an hour minimum wage, $18,000. And it also says the Park and Rec will maintain an adequate inventory of supplies. It doesn't mention what supplies they're talking about here. It's an unknown amount. The total amount by my calculations would be more than $333,000. I suppose it would be fiscally responsible for someone to verify my numbers. These sections are another way tax dollars are supporting this enterprise fund even before the budget is passed. A curiosity on 205, it says establish a satisfactory inventory of golf merchandise at a minimum of $10,000. The merchandise is to be sold at a reasonable price. Who's going to see if it's reasonable or not? I'm not sure how anybody's going to manage that. It also says in section 603, make sure he has a $10,000 fidelity bond. I'm sure somebody's going to take care of that before he's hired. It should be the contractor. Now, on agenda item 9C, and I haven't seen any changes in the budget preparation recently. And the last time I looked, there was a column that needed to be added for the amount of money spent to date. That's required in the charter. And I suppose, is the town council recommended column complete? I think that's what you're going to do tonight. So maybe we can find out how you're going to change the budget tonight. In conclusion, I think item 9B, the contract, should not be voted on before agenda item 9C. The contract depends on what is passed by the people in the town referendum. The budget shifts more than $333,000 from the golf course business to the taxpayer's pocket. As I said before, I believe the council is made up of good, well-intentioned individuals, so I trust you will do the right thing. Do not take away money from mandatory government responsibilities like police, fire, and public work departments for discretionary leisure golf activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come up?
Through the chair, if I can. Mr. Mickle, I apologize for walking out. I have bad allergies. I didn't want to cough in the middle of your statement.
Good evening. My name is Richard George. I've been a loyal resident of Watertown for over 72 years. I live on Wheeler Street in Watertown. I just have a couple of questions. One, did the town of Watertown and Oakville receive COVID relief fund aid? And if the town did receive it, what did you do with it? And number two, I walk for health, I try, and I walk past Baldwin School, and it looks like it's empty and dormant. Does the town have plans for it to generate either more income or sell it or rent it? And please try to keep the taxes low. I know you got a budget referendum. That means we got to vote, and the taxes will go up again as usual. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the town council? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
You ready? Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 21st, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I abstain.
Abstain.
Abstention. Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve the special finance committee meeting of March 22nd, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I abstain.
1, 2. And Anthony as well. Motion passes. Chairman's report, a couple correspondence that are in our packet. One was data from the fire chief related to ambulance calls in town. There's also a flyer related to a survey that the police department has put out. And also correspondence from both the town manager and the superintendent related to the current budget that we'll be discussing later. That's all I have. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Chairman, and members of the Town Council. I promise to keep it very brief tonight. We have a lot on our agenda. I just wanted to keep you updated on the Community Police Campus Style Project. I will be reaching out to Mr. Huma Jakunski and Hume to schedule workshops for the council to ask questions and give comment as to the size and scope of that project. So I'm anticipating securing those dates for the next 2 council meetings for us to work through that. I would anticipate that we can maybe get a presentation on both projects, and then we could work through the questions and then carry it over into a second meeting if we need to. Okay. That'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Under subcommittee, we have the debt budget.
Yes, good evening. I'll take a few moments and go over the general fund debt. It's on page 18 of your budget books. Currently, we are down $144,409 from this current year, fiscal year 21-22, mostly due to 2 refundings that we did. One was in May of 2021, and the other one this January 2022. There's been $80,000 budgeted for the upcoming year for anticipated bond costs for the two, or actually the multiple projects for the municipality and the Board of Ed. Once again, if you look on page 18, you'll see the bonds from 2009, 11, 14, and 15. They've dropped off. That's due to the age and also the refunding that we did. Any questions?
Any questions? Also, yeah, I was going to say, in your packet, you have a little graph,
Yes.
2 little graphs. In summary, the blue line or blue columns represent the amount of debt payments we have in each of the coming years. And there's 2 different versions, but the kind of the red brick areas are if we went out bonding for certain dollar amounts, what our debt payments annually might become. And that there's estimates in there as far as interest rates and stuff, but it's just a visual aid on where we currently stand for debt and where it might look like in the future.
In which of these two are the ones that are in this proposed budget that were town manager's proposed
You
budget?
want to look at year 2023.
So this,
The rest is in the future years.
yeah, but these are two,
Yep, but it's the blue on each is the same.
right, but the proposed debt service is different.
That's if we did bonding, if we did new bonding. So if that's community center, police station, roofs, fields.
So there's one that's existing, and then the other one is if we add the extra projects on.
I see. The one with more proposed debt services with the added projects?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Moving on.
I'll make a motion to appoint Amanda Manafort, 319 Thomaston Road, as a member of the Park and Recreation Commission for a term to expire January 31st, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? We're going to abstain from that one.
I move to approve the independent contractor agreement at Crestbrook Park Golf Course.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mark, there was a lot of questions earlier. Are you able to describe any of that for us?
I'll certainly answer.
Al might have notes if. I guess you could start with any changes from the previous contract to the current contract and anything that is kind of in the favor of the town council.
I got it, I think. I'm glad I brought it. I didn't know I was going to be on this. So changes from the current contract. Number one, it's a one-year deal instead of a three-year deal. Number two, we've, I believe, better outlined the duties of the pro, what he needs to get accomplished, what needs to be done in order to properly run the golf course. The third thing that we've done is we've removed the additional payments based on increases in tee times, because it turned out that those were a little bit of a problem. Not tee times, but rather tee revenue. We try to run deals to get more people up there to try to increase play, and in the past, that kind of worked against the bonus for the pro, because he wouldn't get as much money for the tee times as he did before, so it would change his bonus structure. The other thing is, instead of getting $1 for 9-hole carts and $2 for 18-hole carts, it's $1 for all carts. So those are the monetary differences, as well as some of the contractual differences. Again, we tried to better spell out what constitutes cause, so that if there's a problem, we have some more teeth in what we can do.
So overall, the cost, you believe, is lower than the previous contract that we had in place?
There's no question the cost is lower.
And the reason why it's before us now is for us to review and approve it prior to it being offered to someone? Is that correct?
That's correct. So we are up against a time constraint to get the golf course open. We did interviews approximately 2 weeks ago, so we're moving through the process. I thought it was important that the town council review the contract and approve it. There was a selection of a golf pro, conditional on background checks and some other minor criteria. If you approve this, then we're ready to present this contract to that golf pro and get him up and running and getting the golf course open.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Turn your mic on, please.
Okay. I have a few. The Park and Rec Commission, do they see this first and approve it?
Because of the time constraints, they actually had a meeting this afternoon to discuss whether we only had 2 applicants, and out of the 2 applicants, only one was qualified for the job. He was, even though he was the only qualified applicant, he did meet the needs of where we want to go with the golf pro. So the commission met this afternoon, discussed making that offer contingent on the council approving this contract.
Okay. And I read it, and what are starter and rangers?
I'm not a golfer, so I'm going to defer to
Okay, so
Attorney
starters are the people that are at the beginning, at the first hole, the 10th hole, to make sure that everybody who's going off has got a ticket and they've paid their greens fees. Rangers are intended to keep play moving. Public golf courses have a reputation for being very slow in play. And where a round might take you 4.5 hours somewhere private, it might take you 5.5 or more hours at a public course, so they hire rangers to go out and keep people moving along. Nobody really cares how good or bad a golfer you are as long as you move along.
Okay. And so our pro that we have now is no longer with us. We're hiring someone new.
That's correct.
Okay. And the town will pay his salary.
That I don't know the answer, whether it comes
Enterprise.
directly from,
That's what I thought it said in the contract. Because it said the town, oh,
Lisa, would you answer that? Can you answer that question?
As far as the contract? No, not, the contract is with the town.
Is the payment coming,
From the golfers.
comes from the enterprise fund?
Absolutely.
Okay.
okay. But this pro,
He's not an employee, it's a contract.
it's a contract.
Not an employee.
He's not an employee.
Well, if the town is paying him, that's what I don't
Well,
understand.
it's an,
They
he's,
are the contract.
he's
Okay.
hired as an independent contractor based on the conditions of this contract. So he's not an employee as somebody we would hire in Park and Rec who would be entitled to benefits and other, any other type of benefits that the town would offer.
So his salary comes out of the golf fees, or the, whatever the park.
The enterprise fund,
Okay.
yes.
And we pay for the starter and rangers through the town, if I read the contract right. We're the town's responsible to pay for starters and rangers.
They're still coming out of the enterprise fund.
It's the enterprise fund.
I must have not read this right then. Okay.
Keep in mind, the enterprise fund is part of the town. It's not the general fund, but it's still part of the town.
And I know these are going to be 2 not right questions, like what I just said, but are the golf carts insured? Okay, and that's through the town, not through the pro?
They're through the town, through a contract with the town, and it's, again, through the advertising.
Okay. All right,
It will all fall under Crestbrook if you receive the contract.
okay. And, okay, I think that answers it. Thank you.
Through the chair. I believe Mr. Jessel very accurately described this contract. It's financially sound in the benefit of the town. It's fair, and it also defines the responsibilities of this person selected to be the golf pro, which wasn't really done in the past. And he's more accountable, he or she, whoever it might be, it being this one-year contract. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Next is discussion.
Yep. So, discussion related to the 2022-2023 budget. Would anyone like to start, or should I?
I'm sorry.
Be our guest.
I do have a couple comments/questions, and I'll put the police chief on the spot first if I can. Yeah, if you want to come up. In our current budget, there's relatively few new positions being created, one of which is an additional officer on the police department. Can you just explain again the needs for the additional officer?
Sure. Good evening. Josh Berniger, Police Chief. We currently are budgeted for 40 sworn members of the police department. That's a chief, a deputy chief, 3 lieutenants, 7 sergeants, 5 detectives, and the remainder are patrol officers, which amounts to, if we were fully staffed, it's either 22 or 23. That allows for approximately 4 to 5 officers to be scheduled per actual shift. Now, of that 22 to 23 officers assigned to patrol, we have 2 full-time school resource officers. I also have another patrol officer assigned to the Drug Enforcement Agency on a regional task force, which does have benefits for our community. That decreases the amount of personnel I can actually assign to shifts. In short, I don't have a lot of bench players on each of the shifts. So when any officer either is on sick leave, maternity leave, vacation, personal days, or reassigned to training, it generally is backfilled with overtime, which is costly. If we can increase the number of bench players that are assigned to the patrol shifts, it will dramatically reduce overtime. It'll increase morale. It will put additional officers on the road when there's no actual leave being utilized at the time. I'd like to get the patrol force eventually up to 46 sworn, which is a more appropriate size department for our community, but obviously we're a few years down the road for that.
And you would agree that, I mean, even though a new officer might cost 80 or 100,000, whatever it might be, that a good chunk of that salary would be made up on just a reduction of overtime?
It would certainly, yes. It's impossible for me to ever say how much overtime we would be saving by bringing this person on board, but there would absolutely be a reduction in overtime. The more officers that are assigned to patrol, the lower your overtime costs are going to be.
Any other questions that we have here?
Chief, when was the last time you added to the head count of the police department?
2019, we brought it from 37 to 40 in that particular budget.
Anyone else for the police chief while he's here?
I have one question. Chief, I'm not sure you know the answer to this question, but I was looking just through the budget again about parking tickets versus pistol permits, and I just noticed it was, I think, $25,000 for pistol permits. I'm just wondering how much is a pistol permit?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
I
remember
wasn't
the
sure if you
actual
knew
cost.
that.
There's several different charges for a pistol permit. The state collects, when someone applies for a pistol permit, I know they have to write at least three different checks. One is to the town of Watertown, and the town gets a share. I want to say it's $70, but I could, does that sound right? Thank you. Okay, terrific. And then, of course, the state takes their share. I'm not sure if there's a third check or not, but I believe $70 goes to the town for each pistol permit.
Okay, so that's a lot of pistol permits.
I sign a lot of pistol permits every week. Almost disturbing amount of pistol permits every week.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was concerned about. Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was going to go to another department, but. Go ahead. Actually, I'll move on to the Board of Ed. You'd like to come forward? We've discussed in the past increase in special education costs, so on and so forth. Can you help describe to us some of the, or if there are any new positions for the Board of Ed? Increased number of teachers or paraprofessionals or whatever it might be.
So we actually would love to increase our personnel, but this year, all of our requests from our administrative team, where we did have requests for faculty, paraeducators, teachers, custodians as well, we are not increasing any personnel at this time. In addition, our cabinet members, what we've gone ahead and done is we've coupled the roles, so now instead of having just a director of facilities, we have a director of facilities and security. Instead of having a special education director and a director of pupil services, we've gone ahead and we've coupled it together. In addition to not filling our director of human resources role that I know you guys had heard about last year and probably in years previous before my tenure here, we're not filling that role. Instead, I've coupled it in with our current director of operations, who also oversees curriculum and instruction. We have, however, using the ARP ESSER money, utilized one individual in terms of special education coordination because of the increase in special education needs. But that is, again, paid out of our grant funding, and so that's either a temporary position that will come to an end once that funding runs out, or we'll have to figure out how to kind of jiggle our funds. But just to give a little bit of background, over the past 4 to 5 years.
Can you talk more into the mic?
Oh, sure. Just to give a little bit of additional background, over the past 4 to 5 years in just our educator pools, so just our teachers, at the high school alone, we have actually reduced by almost 5 to 6 teachers in multiple areas. So whether we say we brought down 2 science teachers or we took down a culinary arts teacher, over those years we have reduced faculty numbers. In addition, last year, as you know, we had not only a large appropriation, but in order to be able to kind of make it out to the end, we had a number of layoffs to make this year's budget number. And so with that, we have had reductions. And if I could add more people, I would, but we haven't been able to this year.
I just had one other question, which I didn't notice until not too long ago. In your budget, under the telephone and postage line item, there was a large increase there, around $150,000. I was wondering what is in there this year that might not have been there last year.
Okay, so just so that I'm talking about the right thing, could you point me to which line item you're?
010-50944.0000.9010.
Through the chair, those are actually the town's numbers. So you're not going to be able, he's picking that out of our budget book.
Now, is that not under Watertown School
It is,
District?
but we get those numbers, they have their line item budget, and then they give us what to put in the book here, the roll-up, exactly.
May I borrow your book just
Sure,
to take a
here's
look at the
one right
line?
here.
Okay, perfect.
Definitely. I'll tell you what page.
So everything else seemed very similar, and then that one line kind of,
We've got it all memorized. Okay. All right, so here it goes. Sorry, one more time. 010.
Going to go to page 19.
19. Okay, perfect.
Telephone and postage.
All right, so telephone and postage.
so is that an allocation coming from the
It's probably a
town?
combination of things that you rolled in and went under this one line item.
Okay, so okay, so I'll double check with our detail, but what I do know is that our telephone contract with Mitel is about $150,000 or so, and that takes care of all of our telephones across all 5 buildings, as well as our central office here. And then for postage, we use a company called Quadient, and they have postage meters at each of our buildings. We have, however, reduced those meters to save some costs, so we're actually eliminating the meters at 3 of our schools. It's roughly around an $1,800 savings per school, and then with that, we'll just, I think we probably put in their postage money so that the meters are gone, but we'll just, utilize stamps and or utilize our meter here. But I do know that a large chunk of our telephone piece there is a Mitel contract for all of our phones.
And in that contract is, I know the school system, they send out a lot of texts and mass phone calls. Is that part of that contract, or is that something?
So I don't think it is. So our kind of email and text messages come through another platform, and that comes through probably one of our digital website lines, because it's tied to our website as well. So whatever we pay for that service includes that, which is less than $15,000, I believe. But ultimately, the phone contract year over year is very expensive.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Board of Ed?
This kind of goes for you.
Can you turn your mic on?
And I know there's 2 police officers that are assigned to the schools. And through, I guess, through the chief, is why are we supplying those, and why aren't we hiring retired police officers so you could have those 2 guys back on the street, and the police and the school department could go and hire their own police officers, retired police officers, if you will, to work the school system? Is there some type of cost savings that you guys are doing it this way versus him losing those 2 police officers on the road versus being in a school atmosphere?
Right. So we're not dissimilar from other districts who also have school resource officers in their school buildings. Just so that everybody knows the makeup of our 5 different buildings, we have 3 of our elementary schools, John Trumbull, Polk, and Judson, that have armed security officers. So we do go ahead and we hire retired police officers. We're very happy that they're retired police officers, and they work with our youngest schools. There is a lot of research around the benefit of having an active police officer in the upper grades, particularly in middle and high school. Some of that research just goes to the relationships that an actual police officer makes with our students, so that when school is not in session and it's after hours or before hours or on the weekends, they have a friendly face, or they have somebody that they can go ahead and make a connection with. When it comes down to budget, this is a partnership piece that a lot of districts do with their local police department, so that not only they can cultivate the partnership with the schools, but also attempt to see a reduction in things that may happen in the community with their youth. I will just give case in point, Officer DeCina, who is at the high school, he has been part of some of our perhaps most complicated and most hard-hitting cases for our school district and for our community. And thankfully, to his relationships with our students, we've been able to secure students quicker, make sure that they're safe, make sure that families have good communication, and we're very much thankful to our police department. Chief Berniger is always just a text away, so is our town manager, Mr. Ramo, and so all of that really is just building that partnership. As for the budget dollars, I think what it does is, and this is my speculation, it shows that both of our groups have, a skin in the game. We certainly are not trying to take Officer DeCina or Officer Donston off the streets where they can do other work as well. But we do think that there is also a preventative piece of having them in our schools as well, if they weren't in our schools. A retired police officer can certainly do a very similar job, but I think it's different. And a lot of the research shows just to the importance of having an actual school resource officer in our buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm done for now. You have something?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm not sure exactly how to begin this, except by saying that I would like to see a no tax increase this year. I would not propose that we cut the education budget. I would propose that we look at the town budget and make whatever cuts are possible there, and those cuts be addressed by the ARPA funds that we received. We received $6 million, and the regulations surrounding that money were loosened, or more flexible, let's say, than they were originally, which would allow us to use some of that money for one-time purchases if there's any of those items still left in the budget after the town manager cut the budget. I just feel that it's a year when the people of Watertown need a tax break. And I know that's not easy because there's needs on the town side that are just as great as those on the Board of Ed side. And in some cases maybe greater because we've been very conservative on our side for several years in order to support education. But I do believe that it's time that we looked at the numbers we have in front of us this evening and find a way to make this as low as possible or a zero increase.
Actually, mentioning the ARPA funds, Mark, would you like to just explain the little exercise that we did earlier as far as trying to identify some of those one-time items that might be good candidates for the ARPA funds and what that total came to
Yes.
with the very short notice that I gave you?
Yes. So I'd just like to point out and put the whole picture in front of everybody. So is it okay if I speak a little bit more outside of those ARPA fund usage? So just so you're aware, the town was asking for approximately 2.4 million increase over the current last year budget. Of that amount, 1.266 million is in minimum wage increase, the 2.5 years that we went without a white-collar contract, and our normal contract agreements with our union. In addition, there was about $100,000 just in fuel and a little bit more for electricity increases. So, that's about almost 1.4 million of that 2.4. So of that million that is left, I went in and I tried to identify some one-time costs. And as Councilwoman Rosa stated, the original request by our town department heads was about a little over $3 million. I cut out 1 million of that 3 million before I even presented it to the town council. So we had a department head meeting today, and we went through that budget to try and identify those items that we could pull out as a one-time payment. And we struggled to get to $450,000. I could probably go in here and find other items that maybe we could piece together or look to maybe pay for this year and maybe encumber the next 2 years to increase that. And there'll be a benefit to us moving forward, but it is, as we discussed today, a balancing point that if we take too much out of our budget, how do we recoup that money going forward? We're now at a deficit, and at some point, we're going to have to pay for that. Some of the items that I looked at, if you remember, the Munson House water line at $70,000. We have a property reevaluation that we could maybe pay $150,000 of that. That would be a big ticket item. Dog pound improvements of $27,000. We needed to do the roof on that, so we could pick that out. Maybe some small items like vehicle iPads that we were intending on purchasing. We did identify some of the issues, computer issues in the police department that we could possibly pull out approximately, I think, $60,000 that we could pull out and make one-time payments. And then it's all small potatoes after that. It's really going after the $1,500, $2,000 items to get up to that amount. So we can do it, be happy to do it as best we can, but it's not easy. It's not going to be an easy task because I cut so much out of the first round.
Let me continue. Currently, with the numbers the way they are, it's 0.81 mil increase. So if we were to cut, say, 450 or 500,000, does it change that? It's such a small amount.
Well, a $250,000 is 470,000.
Right.
So that would drop it down to about a $500,000 increase.
So we'll drop it to a $500,000. And
And there's another $1 million to get it to zero.
so it would take another $1 million to get it down to zero.
To cut $1 million, we would have to go into personnel without.
No, I can't do that.
Is it safe to say that with a little more work and get your 450,000 up to around a $500,000 that we could allocate from ARPA funds?
I think that I could, with some deep work, I think we could get somewhere between that $500,000 and $600,000 if you wanted to use that through ARPA, and then did a smaller mill rate increase. I think that we can work that out. It wouldn't hurt the town side because we could get those one-time purchases and we would still have a small increase. I think the dollar amount at the 0.81 is about a 0.84 mil increase. It's approximately $140 per household of an assessment of $166,000. So, if we took a quarter of that, we'd be down under $8 a month or something for the current households for an increase. I know some people have a hard time affording that, but, a lot of these increases are fixed costs that have already been agreed to.
Anyone else? Denise?
As Mary Ann stated with the ARP money, some of the big, like the highway department, they wanted
You got to speak
a
up.
new sweeper.
Speak up.
Highway department was asking for a new sweeper, and I think a new pickup, not a pickup truck, a dump truck. Could
Yes.
that be considered taking that out and doing it through the ARP money?
Well, I've already cut most of the major items that the highway had asked for this year. I had some discussions with the new superintendent, and actually Mr. Grand Prix and I had some discussions today on the importance of keeping their projects and trucks funded. So basically, I cut everything they asked for except for one backhoe. That was imperative that they get that backhoe in place so that they could continue, they could replace the one that's about ready to not work any longer, for lack of better words. As far as the sweeper, we've had some discussions that we are looking to transition to a more of a salt base for the winter. So I thought it would be best that we cut that at this point so we could evaluate that. After we transition to that, we could kind of decide whether we're going to need a brand-new sweeper or an updated sweeper and a used sweeper. I just think it would be better that we have those changes in place before we make those decisions. There were a couple other items that they're in need of, and, you know, moving forward, if we don't put it in this budget, we're going to have to put it in the following years because they need the equipment.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Through the chair. Again, I agree with Mary Ann. Although I am 100% against a mill increase. I think that the department heads need to go back, dig deep into their budgets, and I hate to say it, but I also think the Board of Education needs to go back and dig deep. This is not a year that we should be going back to the townspeople and asking them to take more money out of their pockets when you stop for gasoline now and you see somebody reaching in their pocket and, you know, pulling out $2 and going in and asking for $2 worth of gas. We're in trouble. And I think the people in town here are in trouble. And this is not the year to give an increase to the townspeople.
Anyone else?
Through the chair. I would have to concur with Mr. Metallic's explanation of the problem. The problem is, I've sat through many budget presentations, all professionally done, well done by the department heads on the town side, well done by the superintendent of schools, and they were very lean in presentation, but I think we should definitely keep the mill rate the way it is, zero-based, and if it has to be altered, something being done, I think on the town side personally, I think we can't ask for many more without cutting services to the effect that the people, to the extent rather that the people expect to receive. Thank you.
Rachel?
Mark, I have a couple questions. I tried to write some notes down, and I think you said you struggled to get to about 450,000. The only specific number I wrote down was the $27,000 for the dog pound. That's obviously pretty far off from 450, so.
It is.
And are you talking about $27,000 the ARPA money would use for the dog pound, or we just would not do that?
I feel that I could identify one-time cost projects. So as I just gave you examples, so the dog.
Oh, you had the water
roof-
line too, right?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry to interrupt. You had the water line as well, I was thinking about.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
So I was just giving a few examples. I have a larger list if you wanted me to go through what I have. But identifying, like, as an example, that dog pound improvement, replacement of the roof. If we pay for that roof at $27,500, we don't have to pay for that roof again for maybe, hopefully, 30 years. So it's not a big hit if we use our ARPA funds at this point. Some of the bigger cost items, as I said, was looking at that reevaluation. If we hit that for 2 years out of the ARPA money, that would accumulate to $300,000. That's what gives us the big bump up. You know, I have an intern that we use for blight. You know, that's $20,000 that I could cut out of our budget, but I'm going to have to reassign those tasks back to the police department. So if we go with a $0 mill increase, we're not going to have an extra police officer. And if we cut, as an example, this intern, those tasks are now going to go on to the police department. So, I mean, it is the domino effect. But for the town to cut $1.5 million, we're going to have to go into personnel. There's just no other way around that.
I have a couple other questions and comments. There's obviously money in the budget for the deputy police chief.
Yes.
And so where does that stand?
So the chief and I have met recently, and we're working through an agreement to fill that position. The importance of filling that position is the chief has a unique set of skills, and he does very well at them. There are other skills that need to be brought into the police department, and if we look for succession planning, we need to bring that other individual in to assist the chief in building the police department. At this point in our command structure, we do not have the individuals that are ready to take on that role. So as we work through this, I'm hopeful that in the near future, that will be replaced and they will continue to we'll end up with a new deputy chief, and we could build our team back up so that when Chief Berniger decides to retire or move along, we can bring somebody up within to take over the reins of the police department. That would be the goal ultimately.
Okay, and then finally, I have just a couple of comments. I think, Mark, as you put it, I mean, this is, if we do not fund some of these things, we're, kicking the can down the road, and it's going to only hurt us later. And so I think it's short-sighted to have a 0% or a 0 mill rate increase as our goal, because it's been very clear in all the presentations from all the department heads that these are needs of the town. I mean, these are not extravagant requests by any stretch of the imagination. And we hired Mark to come in to, and revitalize the town, and he's been great about, really trying to be innovative and move the town forward. And if we're not going to put our money where our mouth is, the town is going to stagnate. And if we're not moving forward, it's going to go backward. And we're going to really suffer. And I mean, believe me, I don't want people who can't afford $8 a month to have to pay $8 a month. But it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's for the much greater good of the town as a whole to spend this money. So I support keeping the budget where it is. I definitely support using the ARPA funds for those one-time funds. But I just don't see how it makes sense, because we're going to have to pay it sometime later. And I'd rather pay, as a taxpayer, a little bit now and not have a huge bill 2 or 3 years down the road. And also, I would just, say that the greater national economy, there's a lot of positive things that are happening in the economy. I mean, gas prices are unfortunate, but the state of Connecticut has just given us a 25-cent tax reprieve. And gas prices are coming down. And so I think there's reasons to be optimistic about the overall economy. And the state of Connecticut's economy is in great shape. The revenue is huge, and we're doing, I think, fairly well overall. So those are my thoughts.
Mary?
Maybe the appropriate course of action would be to go to the public hearing with the cut of $450,000 or $500,000 and hear what the public as a whole has to say, whether they'll accept the $500,000 increase or whether they want us to make further cuts and go to 0. But at least we would have input from the public at large.
Okay.
So we're talking about cuts of, but are those true cuts, or is that replaced with ARPA funds? In other words, if
The $500,000 roughly is replaced with ARPA.
$500,000 is replaced with ARPA, so then there would be, so it's still, there is no cut necessarily, right? It's just all ARPA funds that are going to be, well,
It's a different source.
There's another $1 million+ if you want that mill to be.
1.4, roughly 1.5. So if we did 5 out of ARPA, there's still $1 million. I understand that, but it's still, there's really, I don't see it as a cut. I mean, it's just trading buckets, I guess, that the town has, but I understand, the issues, but I can't agree to a mill increase. I think we got to find a way to figure something out. I mean, we got millions in ARPA funds. We also generated over $3 million in additional revenue from the last budget, just from tax and general revenue of the town. So I think we just got to find a way. So I can't agree to a tax increase for our residents.
Yep, Denise?
Okay, the mill rate that I asked for, okay, does that include the increase with the Board of Education up to 6.35? That was figured in with the higher percentage on their new presentation?
No, that mill rate increase that I sent you today did not include that additional $580,000 request. So that was based separate from that request.
Okay.
In the printout that was included on your desk when you got here, it shows the 0.84 mil increase. As Mark said, it does not include the 580 that the Board of Ed has asked for separately for different types of insurance, or the risk of insurances being more than what was previously budgeted. What the number does include is the funds needed to budget for the salary increases that we did a month or two ago for the department heads.
Yeah.
That's in that number. And also there was a lease payment that was added that was previously missing. So that's where the 0.84 mill rate, or increase in the mill rate, came from. On that same sheet, you'll see what 1 mil is worth as far as costs. And that's where if 0.84, we want to get that down to 0, it would be, roughly $1.6 million of cuts to do that. With that said, personally, I think bringing the increase in the mill rate down to 0 is irresponsible. There's a lot of costs that are in the budget that if we push them all down the road, the bill is going to be double next year. I am in support of using ARPA funds for certain one-time purchases. Keep in mind, every year there's typically one-time purchases, so even though we are using some of those funds, we don't want to dig too deep into that pocket, because a year or two from now, it will come back to get us. What I would recommend is roughly that $500,000 to $600,000 that you could identify from the ARPA funds, which will get us pretty close to the mill rate increase of about 0.5, plus or minus a couple decimals. But I think taking away services, taking away personnel to get another $1 million worth of cuts is just going to do more harm for the town now, and definitely more harm for the future.
I have one other through the chair.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. The money that we're going to be receiving from the bus terminal, they said it's going to be on a yearly basis. Can that money be used to supplement the budget?
It's already in the budget.
It's already in the budget.
It's not in there under our pilot payments from the state of Connecticut.
400,000 a year?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
430,000, something like in that ballpark.
Okay. And I like Mary Ann's idea of sending this to the public hearing first before we, take away or do anything, and see how the full public feels about the increase or not increasing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gary?
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of hard to bring it down to a 0 increase. I also think that the town should look into having a grant writer for both the Board of Ed and for the town itself. And I think, you're not really paying their salary. You can probably just give them a percentage of what they're going to bring into the town for grants and that. And I just think that might be something we can look at down the road to help us out.
Thank you. So if there isn't any further discussion, we'll move to item D. So I guess my question is, would anyone like to make a motion? And if you need help with those numbers, I could give those to you. Well, you could, this right here is your starting point, and then it's plus or minus from there.
No, the numbers that are going in.
Yep, these two numbers. Those are your two numbers.
They're going to change.
If we change them, yes.
I want to make the motion with them changed. I don't like this.
Then what would you like to change? What dollar amount?
500,000.
To be used from ARPA? So then you're at
Sue, can you give us the numbers that would go in minus the 500,000?
33,583,861. 583.
$583.
Yep. 533. Yep. Yes. Turn your mic on.
I will make a motion to set the following budgets for the budget public hearing. Town General Fund, $33,583,861. School General Fund, $50,549,438. General Fund total, $84,133,299. Town Road Aid, $348,918. Water Operations, $1,993,402. Water Capital, $269,000. Sewer Operations, $1,977,644. Sewer Capital, $169,000. Water and Sewer Debt, $300,750. Crestbrook Golf Operations, $723,068. Local Capital Improvement, $151,260. And Debt Service Fund, $292,585.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? What this is a $500,000 less on the town side with the intention of using ARPA funds, which will come to the town council's vote at a later date. Any further discussions on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
Opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Motion passes 5-4. Moving on.
I move to set the budget public hearing to be held on April 26, 2022 at 7 p.m. at Watertown High School, 324 French Street in the auditorium. The public hearing will be an in-person public hearing and available in listen-only mode. Those wishing to submit written testimony for the record may do so by April 22nd, 2022, which will be indicated on the town's website under budget information.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $1,818.68 for tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions?
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to move into executive session for discussion regarding the sale of town property located at 37 Forest Street, the Old Town Hall, and also to discuss a possible assessment settlement agreement in the Derico Incorporated, care of United Parcel Service Incorporated versus Town of Watertown issue. In attendance will be the town manager, the town attorney, Paul Jessel, and town council members present this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Entering executive session. Here's one thing I wanted to bring. I just don't know what pocket that went in.
can't do the 26th. Get out here.
No, it's okay. Gotta take a pill here.
Recording stopped.